Discussion on the democracy of AI, featuring Professor Don Song of Oasis Labs, Ziqi Chen, who's the CEO of Cortex Labs, Nikil Viswanathan, member of the Forbes 30 Under 30 list and the co-founder and CEO of Alchemy, Nick Cassimatis from Velocity, Michael Arrington of ArringtonXRP will be moderating this discussion. Please welcome our panelists.
It's not on. Is it on? It's on. Okay.
Right. One request, can somebody take photos of this? And I'll find you afterwards. Someone raise their hand who can take photos. All right, there we go. Thank you.
So I'm in control of this panel, Nikil, so if you could just hold off for a minute. But thank you for taking pictures.
The assistant moderator.
Everybody have a microphone? Okay. So, Don, do you have a microphone? Yeah. Okay. So, my name is Mike Arrington. I'm the founder of ArringtonXRP Capital. I got my new t-shirt, so that's cool. We're a little late because you guys didn't show up on time, which is fine. Same. I hate getting up early, too, although I did get up early and showed up on time. But we're going to have to end a little early. So multiple people on stage have things they have to do today. So we're going to end right at 11:15, which still gives us about half an hour, I think. So it's plenty of time. And also then we'll give a little bit of time back to the conference. So this panel is titled Democracy of Artificial Intelligence. We're probably not going to talk much about democracy or artificial intelligence. We might a little bit, but we're going to also go off script as needed. We have some serious intellectual horsepower on stage, and I want to use that as much as possible to talk about whatever you guys find interesting. What I'd like to do is start with Nick at the end and spend as much time as you'd like introducing yourself and what you're doing in business right now.
Sure, thanks, Mike. Hi, I'm Nick Cassimatis, the founder of Velocity.ai. Real quick about my background. I've been an AI researcher my entire life, artificial intelligence, long before it was trendy, actually back during what was called the AI winter when it was very unpopular, and career suicide, actually. So I was a professor in the field. About 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, I founded a startup called Skyphrase. Yahoo bought that startup about 4.5 years ago. And briefly, this startup had a technology that was ahead of its time in terms of using AI to make natural language understanding very rich and sophisticated by computers. We were acquired by Yahoo. I led their natural language understanding team there for about 3 years. And then I spent a year at Samsung where I headed their North American AI research. So, we had an office here in Mountain View, and we're just starting an office up in Toronto. So that's my background in brief. Our project, Velocity.ai, has the following. It tries to address the following problem, both in the centralized and decentralized world. We have this problem where software is extremely, software and apps are extremely complex and difficult to produce. And so that shows up in a lot of ways. Basically, there are a lot of projects that never happen because they can't find good engineers. Engineers are too expensive to develop for them. I mean, here in the blockchain, we see that all the time. It also happens where people want software to be free or cheap, but at the same time, it's really expensive to produce. So they subsidize it with advertising. And so that leads to all kinds of privacy issues, data hoarding, silos. And it turns out just a lot of the things we don't like about sort of software and how it's distributed in our cloud internet economy all basically hinges on the fact that software is super expensive to produce. And so what we have in our company, and you see this in blockchain, by the way, also we're basically, even though we have this great infrastructure we're building, to this day we don't have really, we're still using centralized software for, we're using WeChat to talk, or we're using Jira in our development projects to track bugs and so forth. All these are centralized cloud-based products. And so the thing that's going to bridge the gap from where we are today to this decentralized world where we have software without silos, that gives you privacy, gives you security, gives you immutability, is decentralized, is uncensorable. The thing that gives us all that is basically making software easier and cheaper to build. So in our company, we have a technology that uses AI to make software 1,000 times faster to produce. So to quantify that, something like Slack or Wunderlist or Asana, something like that, if you wanted to produce that today, it would take, just the core features would take months. We can do it in a weekend with very little training. If anybody, we have a proof of concept, happy to show it to anybody afterwards one-on-one. But for now, that's basically what we are. We're building a network called Velocity that lets you deploy this. We should be ready to sort of release something in 2 or 3 months. So thanks.
Thanks. Dawn?
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Song. I'm a professor in computer science at UC Berkeley. I'm also doing a venture, but I'm not going to talk about it today. So in terms of my research, I work in the area of AI, security, and blockchain. So last semester, I actually taught 2 classes, one in deep learning and one in blockchain. So my friends and colleagues joke about saying that I'm the most favorite professor on campus. Because yes, like deep learning and blockchain, in some sense, the classes that more students want to get in than what we have capacity for. So I will give another talk actually later today, where I'll talk about some of our research projects in the space. Actually, part of it at the intersection between AI and blockchain, how I hope that using blockchain that can help democratize AI, and also some of the technologies we are developing on actually privacy-preserving technologies.
Dawn, you said you're working on a company.
I'm working on a venture. I'm not going to talk about it today.
What's the company called?
You tell me.
Well, so there's a problem with this because I'm an investor in your company.
Right.
And so I need to disclose that right off the bat. So if you're saying you have a company, you don't want to tell people that it's called Oasis, but everybody in here knows that already. How many people in here have invested in Oasis? Okay, well, there, one. How many people in here have heard of Oasis?
Hey.
Yeah, so it's not really a secret. So
I'm not talking about it today.
Okay. Well, is it okay if I talk about it? Okay, so you've started a company called Oasis that everybody knows about. It's super well funded. I'm an investor, but we're not going to mention that today on stage.
Thank you.
Okay. Nikil, tell us about can you talk about what you're doing, or is it a secret?
We've been very quiet, but I can talk. Okay. I can talk about it. We've kind of been accidentally in stealth, not on purpose, just because we've been actually working on the product and not doing like publicity and press. So a little bit of background. I did my undergrad and grad at Stanford in machine learning and artificial intelligence. Did a lot of like advanced computer vision and ML stuff while I was there. Afterwards, graduated, missed all my friends like crazy. It was really sad. Spent the next several years trying to like recreate this college freshman dorm environment, which one of the things we ended up building for fun ended up being the #1 app in the App Store and social. Started doing blockchain, and what we're doing, we've been super quiet. You probably won't see anything. You won't see anything about us online. We don't even have a website. That'll change soonish. But we built a data platform. It's kind of like a data and a machine learning and intelligence platform over the entire blockchain ecosystem. So we process a bunch of different blockchains. We process all the smart contracts. We process all the tokens. And what that platform lets us do, it lets us have intelligence and insights that no one else in the world has. And on top of that, we built a few different verticals of products. So the first product we built was this hedge fund product. The second product we built was essentially, are you guys familiar with Mixpanel or Google Analytics? It's basically like an analytics service for ICOs, and we have a few other verticals that we're building out. We've been super, super quiet, but we have like personal investments from Charles Schwab, Jay-Z, the chairman of the board of Google, Stanford University, CTO Dropbox, like Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel, et cetera. So you'll probably see a little bit more about this soon. Happy to talk about any of that.
Dawn, is Jay-Z one of your investors as well?
I'm not talking about it.
Huh, okay. Nikil, you were once named one of San Francisco's most eligible bachelors. Is that, who was that you that said that, or was it a magazine? Who was it?
I was not expecting to answer questions about this. This was Hinge and Business Insider.
Okay, and are you still a bachelor?
I am. I'm single. This crowd is mostly dudes, so I'm not too hopeful right now, but you're always open to interest.
Okay, so you're heterosexual?
Yes.
Okay, and what type of woman... What type of woman are you looking for to sort of fulfill yourself in life?
All right. Well, if I got a mic, I might as well say it.
I'm just kidding. So, Ziqi, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
So I have a speech yesterday talking about our project Cortex. So let me introduce my background a little bit. Before we start working on the project Cortex, we have been in cryptocurrencies for more than 5 years. Among our 3 co-founders, one is mining Bitcoin from 2011. I personally mine from 2013. But my degree is machine learning. When I graduate, I didn't do machine learning. I go to cryptocurrency, doing trading, and making mining pool, digital wallets, all those things. Then later on, we found it's right time to bring AI onto blockchain. Why should we make a better blockchain available to be able to run AI inference on the blockchain? That's the whole story of the project, the Cortex project. And also, I'm glad Michael Arrington is also our investor. So that's pretty much.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, I'm also an investor in your company. So the 2 cool companies up here, Don, Ziqi, other guys, yet to be seen. So no, I'm just kidding, but I do want to disclose that. So we're going to talk a little bit about AI, and I don't want to go completely on the crazy side yet, but what scares you the most? Is AI and democracy, are they compatible? Let's talk about it a little bit, and then we can get into blockchain.
I think you need to distinguish between, what do you mean by AI? So if by AI you mean sort of somebody as smart as a human being, we have that, then
I mean like a self-aware autonomous
right.
intelligence that's evil.
Right.
Something along those lines. You guys worry about that. You're doing AI work. Do you worry about the moral consequences of anything that you're doing, or not at all?
Yeah, that's a scary thing when it happens. I think that the field is nowhere near close to that happening. So there's hugely overhyped field. And so there's a lot of really good uses for AI. It's really important. But in terms of having sort of some autonomous, self-aware thing that starts to take over the world, that'll be scary when it happens, but we're a long way from that. But it is something to plan for.
Yeah, so you asked what's the most scary thing about AI. So actually, I think before we actually get to whether AI can be evil, so one of my research areas that I'm working is in adversarial machine learning. So in this case, we are not talking about whether AI itself contains evil. It's more about whether attackers, for example, can attack AI or they can misuse AI. And today already, we see a lot of challenges in this space. So for example, one of the recent work that we did demonstrating that essentially attackers, for example, can create what's called adversarial example that can fool the learning system. So for example, one of the recent work we did is take a traffic sign, for example, a stop sign, and then if you just modify, an attacker can just modify it a little bit, for example, put on some small stickers. To humans, you can recognize a traffic sign with no problems, and you may not even pay attention to the small sticker or small modifications on the traffic sign. But this traffic sign can actually cause the computer vision system to misclassify to a target that the attacker selected. And this is just one example as we deploy more and more of these autonomous systems. For example, in self-driving car, we actually have a video showing that as a car drives through towards the traffic sign, and the computer vision system on the on the car will continue to misclassify this adversarial example of the traffic sign. And this is just one example showing that as we deploy more and more of these autonomous systems, we really, really need to be very careful about the potential consequences of how attackers can attack such systems. And the deeper question here is that even though AI deep learning has made a huge advancements, for example, AlphaGo and all that, but the amount of the level of understanding that we have about these learning systems is very, very limited right now. And that's why we actually don't have good defenses for this type of attacks, and we don't even have a good understanding how to address these problems.
Okay.
So I would say these are some of the, at least, really realistic, scary things that I think the whole community should really pay attention to.
And so with your company, Oasis, are you looking at AI as a way to sort of make the product a differentiator, or how does AI fit in with Oasis?
So today I'm not going to talk about what we do at Oasis, but at Berkeley, in my lab, we have been, definitely we are working on various projects that's related to AI, related to blockchain, and also at the intersection between the two. I think there's a lot of really interesting and challenging questions in both areas and also at the intersection.
Ziqi, Nikil, do you guys have thoughts on this?
Just really quickly, I totally echo both these things. I think AI is so far away from being like robots coming here and shooting all of us. And the second thing, that research you talked about is super cool. And I was trying to understand if this was just the geek in me that done artificial intelligence, but like literally, like you can look at this image, and if you place this, if you have like a picture of a stop sign, you place this sticker that's like that big on the stop sign, like a computer will totally get like confused. And it's really fascinating. I definitely recommend checking that out.
So my comments will be, if we make AI open source, everybody can see the code, can see the model, that will be safer for all the people. It's exactly like the security code. Once it's public, people examine what's a bug, potential bug it could be. But for the AI model, it's a little bit different. If a researcher they develop an AI model, they may not be able to predict the behavior once the model evolved. So make it open, public. That's maybe bringing in more effort, and more people are looking at the code and see the potential, risk. That probably gonna be better.
Okay, so thank you. Besides stickers on stop signs, what excites you the most about AI, particularly AI maybe on the blockchain? Like what kinds of maybe decentralized apps can be created that otherwise are impossible with the current state of AI?
So one thing, so this is kind of like what our company does at the core, and I think it's actually really fascinating because when you think about the blockchain, the really innovative thing here is that it's decentralized, but it's also all public, right? So you can see everything that's going on. Well, I think that when you think about that statement, there's actually a big caveat there where it's public in quotes, and the reason for that is technically all of the transactions and the smart contracts and all this information is accessible and public, but there's two realities which make it not accessible. One, it's very difficult to process and to kind of analyze this stuff in real time just because of the volume of data that you're processing. And the second thing is because this data is very difficult to understand, to see trends in it, machine learning is what really unlocks that. And I think basically with machine learning, you can have a ton more transparency, both, and let me be a little more concrete to help you guys understand. So for example, one of the things that our company does that we've been told is we're the only people in the world that can do is we know exactly how much money is going in and out of how much Ethereum tokens and Bitcoin are going in and out of the exchanges in real time. And the way we did that was through a bunch of really advanced machine learning. And if you think about something in the future where there's like a governance or a government that is, let's say, a decentralized organization that's on the blockchain, what we can do now is we can tell you how people are interacting with that organization, how that organization is spending funds, how it's being governed, and all these things which are technically public are not really accessible right now, and machine learning can make those things accessible. So that's why I think it's really exciting.
I think another possibility is it's not so much that things that are impossible will become possible. I think it's things that are infeasible will become feasible. So an example would be a lot of venture capitalists I talk to tell me that they have in-house people building their own custom CRM because there's a workflow for venture capitalists dealing with deal flow and sharing pitch decks with people and so forth that's not handled by any other kind of CRM. So they have to do that because right now CRM is very monolithic. In general, the VC market is too small to have your own customized CRM. And so basically, if you had AI writing software for you, you could have a highly customized, high-quality software for that. So think about that in any other part of your life. Your Boy Scout troop, your Girl Scout troop, I'm an amateur pilot, my flight club. All these things have really crappy software right now or no software at all. And we imagine a world where like the exact software you would want exists. And that's the kind of thing AI can make happen because you could have almost like your own little AI butler making AI for you, making software for you.
Yeah, we were just talking about that we should talk together after the panel because so one of my research projects at Berkeley actually focused on program synthesis using machine learning is how to write automatically, how to teach computers to write code. So yeah, super excited to talk more together after the panel. And then more to your earlier question, I think one thing I really look forward to is to essentially have more of these intelligent smart contracts. So right now, smart contracts, they are called smart contracts, but they are actually, there's nothing smart about them. They are more digital contracts, and that can be enforced. So one of the things that we are working on is also how to make these smart contracts more intelligent by actually bringing machine learning capabilities.
You're working on it at Berkeley or at Oasis?
I'm not talking about Oasis right now. So I'm talking about, like research projects that we're working on.
Okay. So you said that there's nothing smart about smart contracts. So what do you want to do to fix that?
Yeah, exactly as I mentioned, so bringing actually more machine learning AI technologies and capabilities into smart contracts.
Yeah, but that's not an answer. Like, hey, how do you want to make smart contracts smarter? And you're like, we're going to bring AI in to bring it smarter. But like specifically at Oasis, what are you doing to?
I'm not talking about Oasis. Okay. And I'm not giving out the secret sauce.
Sure. Okay. Anything to add?
Since Professor Song is not going to talk about that, I will talk about that.
Yeah, you will talk about your.
That's exactly what we are going to do. So we bring AI inference within smart contract. That's going to be a built-in function for future smart contracts. So for the application level, I can give you an example. For example, decentralized exchange. Now, Bitmain and Binance, they are really serious about making a decentralized exchange. But in the centralized exchange, some people, like large volume trader, quantitative trader, they are using AI algorithm. They are using like reinforcement learning or Q-learning for the trading. But in future, in the decentralized exchange, we can provide the model they are using, make it public. So everybody have the same tool. So which reduce the inequality between different traders. That's possible, one of the possible usage for the AI on blockchain.
All right, so I gave you guys an opportunity to talk about like your companies and what you're doing, but I want to go back to the evil stuff. I mean, not like full evil, but just a little bit. So, and I actually think this is an interesting question. And Nick, you're giving me a look like you're waiting for me to say something stupid, which I'm sure I will.
No, I'm waiting just to expound on evil.
It's not. It's just look. Should AI be controlled at the government level, or should everybody be able to do whatever they want with AI?
Well, I think for anything that has a potential danger, like your car, right? I mean, well, that is a highly regulated thing, but say like knives. I don't know, knives very regulated, no, but we can go out and do horrible things with them. And what's illegal is sort of the horrible thing, not the actual knife itself. And so, so doing bad things, so in some sense, everything's controlled, because if you use it for evil, then you will, for something that's illegal, then that'll be prosecuted. So, so in that sense, but so then the question is, do you need anything in addition to that for AI? And until we get to this fully human level AI, I really don't think so. I think once we have that human level AI, then the tools of government are going to be kind of hard to sort of grapple with that in the first place. So that's my take on that right now. I mean, so, if you have like a specialized drone, like a cruise missile, basically. A cruise missile is AI, right? The thing that guides the cruise missile is like automated guidance. That's old-fashioned AI technology. So I guess cruise missiles are kind of regulated, and it's probably because of their capabilities. So yeah, when they become weapons of some sort, then maybe you want to look at that.
Don, before you answer, let me ask you slightly different. Can you even regulate AI, which I think is another answer to this, but
I think if it's subhuman in its intelligence, like a cruise missile or a lot of other things, then for sure, because it's just, again, so much, your anti-lock brakes, your cruise control, that's a primitive form of AI. All those things are regulatable. If you have a drone that's autonomous, it can fly by itself and shoot people or land on people or buzz people down, that's easy to regulate. The hard thing to regulate, again, is when they're fully autonomous, they're as smart as people, they can self-organize and self-reproduce, and suddenly there's billions of them, then you're in trouble. But I just think we're a long way from that. And in the short term, and I'm reluctant to sort of AI can be such a big benefit that if we try to sort of overregulate AI right now, we're going to lose out on that benefit. I would rather invest in technologies that sort of get us to the point where we can safely run AIs in sandboxes so that they can give us their benefits without hurting us, and sort of worry about sort of in the short term, biowarfare and nuclear proliferation. I think in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years, that's what's going to kill us. It's not going to be AI.
Yeah, I think this is a super important question for everyone, for the whole community to discuss. Actually, there are several different aspects to the question. So one is, so in my talk, I'll also talk a little bit about this. So first, there's a question like, who controls AI? So for example, today, the AI capability is highly concentrated in a few small number of hands, like a few big companies and so on. But also, as we know, like going forward, more and more, each individual one of us, and also even each company and so on, will be more and more reliant on AI capabilities. We'll be relying on these AI capabilities to make more and more important decisions for us. So then the question is, who really has that control? Whoever controls that AI, essentially, depending on how they decide to, what's their motivation and the incentives and so on. So that AI power essentially can have huge influence on every one of us and on the entire society. How important decisions are being made, how resources are being allocated, and all that. So then, hence, it's a really important question: who actually really controls AI, and who should be the right people to control AI? And that also goes to the question: why shouldn't each individual one of us to have better access to the AI capability? Instead of today, AI capability is concentrated in a few small number of hands, and everyone essentially has to be controlled or has to rely on their their incentives and so on. Wouldn't it be better if each one of us actually have direct access to such AI capabilities? But then, of course, then does lead to another question: is what if this kind of AI capability falls into hands of attackers and so on? What's the right way to handle it? And then I think this kind of question also is not new. I actually have always been asked this question. Like even you can talk about in the case of nuclear power, and you can talk about the power of encryption, security, and so on. So my answer typically is that technology is neutral. And technology can be used for good and bad. And oftentimes, it is difficult to actually regulate how the technology will be used. So these are really, really good questions. And also talking about regulation of AI, in the future, it could be that it can be harder and harder to regulate, because already there's a lot of open source things out there, and in general, potentially creating AI. Also, like it's not like even building a nuclear plant, you have things that you can monitor. But for developing AI technologies, it's difficult even for someone to monitor and so on.
You guys have anything to add?
I think just like one small thing. I think when you look at AI, you just have to remember it's another piece of technology like the internet or the blockchain or the automobile or cruise missiles, right? It's like when you think about should we regulate AI, it's like the same question that you apply to all these different domains. And I think AI has been very sensationalized in the movies and the media because it's like, we're replicating humans. But it's just, I agree with Nick on this. We're so far from not even close to that. So I think the way we think about it should be similar as we think about other types of technology.
The one thing I want to add is, yes, I think we are very far from, again, that's what I also mentioned at the beginning, even though AI and deep learning has been making great advancements, but our understanding is still very limited, so we are really far to actually, whatever you may call it, AGI and so on. But still, I think these questions are important questions that I think as a whole community, we should start thinking about this, and I think having discussions around this kind of topic is very, very important to help guide us to even figure out how to think about it.
I think from the, if the AI is related to the, the security, the national security, I think sometimes it is controlled by the government, it's okay. But I'm only going to talk about the AI controlled by the commercialized company. Because so far, people is sort of lacking of a tool to be able to compete with centralized company. The reason people are still submitting their data to the centralized company is they can only trust the centralized company. There's no other third party people can trust. That's exactly the same situation happened in Bitcoin. When you deposit money, bank is the only guy you can trust. So what I propose is actually every end user have their own data. If user can keep their data and have a model locally, then that's going to be a better tool to sell their, not data, but sell the model. You know, selling data sometimes is sensitive, is not applicable. But the data, but the model is pretty much is like a mirror of the end user in the virtual world. What do you like? You know, what kind of, you have your own preferences. So combined with blockchain technology, you know, blockchain technology give you a anonymous address or some anonymity or across the network. So people might have some way to get incentive but keep their identity. So in that case, you know, if the ads buyers can directly sell their ads to the end users, that's probably the way in future to, you know, the centralized company versus end users. They can facilitate this. Yeah, that's my thinking.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very good for, let's say, democracy of the AI.
Yeah. All right. Do you think your company is better than Don's company?
I don't know what Don company is doing. There is no reference point to compare.
I'm just trying to create a little drama in our last minute on stage and say somebody. Do you want to spend the last minute talking about your potential girlfriend, or you were trying to talk about
Set
that
me
earlier,
up.
So do you want to give out your Instagram or something? What do the kids these days use?
Yeah, Facebook me. Nikil, Nikil. Just. Yeah.
I wasn't being serious. All right, so.
Well, I'm serious. So.
Thank you.
This is hashtag startup life when you work all the time.
Thank you guys for your time and for talking with me on this topic. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Thanks, likewise.
Thanks.